Uh, Kawaljit? Kawaljit?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
correctly pronounced. I'm
Ah,
Kavaljit.
Kawajit. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And I realized my audio was terrible because I was connected to a different microphone. And this is my good microphone. So now it's recording on my good microphone. So you should have good audio for this interview.
Actually, I can't guarantee you about the good audio or the video at my end because this is a kind of issue we used to battle with.
Hmm.
At this very moment where I'm sitting, it's a rural area. It's quite far off from the city because I am at the moment talking to you while sitting in my office. Okay,
But
so this
you
was the
sound
only
fine.
thing.
You sound good.
Hello,
Yeah, it
it
sounds
sounds
clear.
good. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so hopefully everything goes well because I don't want that this opportunity must go waste or it should go waste because of any reasons.
I
This
felt so I felt so bad, so guilty because I'm a podcaster. Good audio is should be my specialty, but I just did the whole interview with another YouTuber in India, and
okay.
I feel so guilty because my audio was just terrible. So I told her I'll do another interview to make up for that one, but I think ours will be really good.
Hopefully it goes very well, and I could see a very beautiful fancy setup you have with you. So I'm sure it's going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah,
And
I
of
think we're
course,
good.
being a podcaster, if something wrong happens, this kind of some interruption comes your way or some technical glitch you face, definitely you would feel bad because at your end, you are the expert in your field. So that way it is expected that everything should go very well, at least perfectly fine at your end.
Yeah, yeah. I think it hurts. It hurts more because I wasn't very careful. I don't use Skype that often. I usually use Zoom. So
Okay.
whenever I use Skype, I'm not really familiar with it that well, and so I didn't check it. I should have checked it before. Always be ready.
Ah,
ABC. Yeah, it's
yes.
ABCs of broadcasting. But
Mm.
yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you thank you for inviting me onto your channel. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So that way it is also a very special opportunity for me. And I have talked to so many people. And moreover, I'm working in a kind of field where we used to interact with the people on daily basis. But frankly speaking, because now I'm talking when I'm talking to you before the beginning of the session, I was quite nervous because I haven't had this kind of conversation where you can say I have talked to somebody, though I have talked to a few people outside India, but outside India means simply somebody sitting in Bangladesh, somebody sitting in Pakistan,
Right.
not actually the person to whom we can say or use the term native speakers, kind of, who are
Well,
very fluent in the language.
I'm so happy to talk. I mean, it's kind of a blessing. Like I did one interview with an Indian YouTuber. Oh, sorry, no. I did a first interview with a Pakistani YouTuber, and then an Indian YouTuber reached out to me, and another one, and every week somebody keeps reaching out, and I always say yes because it's good for it's good for me to get some exposure in India because I'm a podcaster and I would love for my podcast to be listened to by Indian English language learners. But also it's just really fun to chat with new people. And Indian people are super polite and so nice to talk to, and I just like it's such a positive experience every time. So I just keep saying yes, yes, yes. So I'm glad that you reached out because for me it's a blessing. It's fun.
Actually, as you just mentioned a couple of seconds ago, that everybody, whenever somebody reaches you out, you always say yes because you want to increase your reach. Being podcaster.
Yeah.
And at this very moment when I'm talking to you, this is an outcome of that reach, you may say, because I noticed your videos on YouTube. I just came across one such video, and after that I noticed, because in my case, because I'm working professional and most of the time I'm out, so time was a big limitation in my case. So I was
Mhm.
just keeping it postponed. I was constantly postponing it, like mailing to you and then having a chat with you whether the time will be suitable for me. But when I noticed that so many Indians, one after the other, they are having conversations with you, then I thought that,
Yeah.
okay, I must also try to make out some way and I must have this conversation with you. And because I was hesitant, quite hesitant, that will I be able to maintain harmony or a balance or my voice, everything, my confidence, so many things were there at the back of my
Yeah.
mind. So finally, I thought I have to take the lead. Kawaljeet, if you want to excel in this language, you have to break this barrier, because this is the name of my channel as well. Break the barriers with Kawaljeet.
Breaking the barriers is such an important part of it. I mean, it really is like language learning is half of language learning is getting out of your own way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Your own preconceived notions about like, oh, this person will judge me. They're going to laugh at me. I'm going to embarrass myself. What if I make a mistake? And ultimately, my conclusion as I'm 46 years old. And so for my time that I've lived on this earth, most people are not concerned with me. They don't care about, only I care about me, like this community, at least in my experience, the Indian English language YouTube community is one of the nicest communities on YouTube. It's just one really nice person after another, all trying to have conversations with each other, improve their English, and talk to whomever they can get to come on to their show. And for whatever reason, I don't see too many like native English speakers on the channels, and I don't know why, they other people are not doing it. So if no one is going to do it, I'll do them all, like I'll just keep going because it's good
Yeah.
exposure. And also, I think it's useful for your students because they get to listen to a person with native intonation, and they get to listen to someone who has a kind of Western perspective on the world. But I've also lived in Asia for half my life. So I have a very interesting, I think, viewpoint on an understanding of kind of the nuances of living in Asia, but growing up in the United States, and balancing, both of those, and then teaching English for a long, long time. I've taught English for 23 years. So I have a lot of experience.
Hmm. 100% bang on that nobody actually judges you. It is our own, what should I say? It's a kind of notion existing inside somewhere that
Yes.
somebody on the opposite side, the other side is going to judge me. Otherwise, nobody bothers about anybody else. Yes, you bother about yourself the most. So that is,
Absolutely.
yeah, well said. And another thing, yeah, YouTube is a very good platform, because one fine day I also par chance stumbled upon one of such videos. Then I found that there are some people talk to each other, and because again, it's not our first language, but because of globalization on a daily basis or on and off, there comes a moments in life where we are to chat, where we are to talk with somebody sitting overseas,
Right.
right? So we don't converse in English, though we have studied during our school days. At the maximum, that was the period when we encountered with this language. And after that, we stopped talking to each other in English. So that way, YouTube is a very good platform. It has given us, it has opened so many avenues for us, and many people now, they have adopted it as a, or at the professional end as well, like
Right.
as a tutors who can speak well, and people like us who are the learners. So this is today I'm talking to you, this is an outcome of that very thing. that I could get this chance to talk to a native person, so that whenever in future, whenever I will be talking, or there will be some this kind of situation, I would dare to go forward and uh, take a may dare to take a lead, like to start the conversation, which
Yeah,
I had never done earlier because of the hesitation. Maybe I may not be able to understand the accent of that person. Maybe, and I think accent is another thing. Vocabulary or fancy words are, keep them aside. The bigger barrier is daring to speak out something. So
right.
we talk before taking a leap.
I agree
So
with you 100%. I mean, I think one of the first things that you have to overcome is fear, the fear of embarrassing yourself, fear of being judged. And so once you make the leap after over that, the next thing you encounter is like you said, connecting with people, finding other people that are interested in also learning English. And it sounds like you found that community in YouTube, on the YouTube platform. You found a community where you can talk to each other and you can work on evolving your English skills, but mainly your speaking skills, because as I understand it, English is taught in Hindi in school, or maybe, or in whatever provincial language is germane to that specific province, and so which is not really a good way to do it. I think we would all agree that's not probably the best way to learn a language. And a probably an overemphasis on grammar and not enough emphasis on just speaking and internalizing a grammar instead of learning the rules of grammar and trying to apply it. I mean, I use the metaphor all the time of, like, you could read, like, 25 books about how to swim, but until you jump in the river or jump in
you
the
can't
ocean,
learn.
you don't
You
know
can't
anything.
learn.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking is the same way. It's just one of those things where you have to, we say in English, to make an omelet, you have to break a lot of eggs. And to speak in English, you got to make a lot of mistakes. There's no way you're going to just start out perfectly. It's not, it doesn't really work that way. It's just, you're a baby when you start speaking, and then you grow and you grow and you mature, and then your speaking gets better and better. And that's just the nature of learning anything, playing guitar, um learning the drums, learning to paint. I mean,
Driving,
driving a car. It's absolutely. I wouldn't trust someone who read 100 books. I wouldn't drive with them until they have 100 hours of, like,
be
driving
there in the
experience.
driving seat.
Yeah, right. Time in the seat. Or a pilot in an airplane. Oh my goodness, how terrifying! He's like, I read all the books. No, but you don't know what it's like to be in the cockpit, responsible for all those people's lives. And so, this is just a really good platform, a great opportunity for, two people who, I'm a language teacher. You are a language learner, I'm assuming. What is your profession? Or what was your profession?
I work in the Department of Education. I'm on some administrative post here. I
Okay.
am not in the teaching field at the moment. I have been in teaching for so many years, but English has never been my subject.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right, but
I studied English just during my school days only, when I was a student.
but I think the dynamic for learning any subject is similar. You start with the building blocks of mathematics and you work your way up to algebra and geometry and calculus. I mean, you don't start students with calculus. You start them with memorizing the times table, and you have to start with the basics in English. But I think pushing people pushing students into situations where they have to use the language, even if their English is very broken, is good practice from the very early stages. Don't just learn the alphabet
Yes.
and reading and writing. I think learning speaking needs to be a fundamental part of that, even when students are first learning, just forcing them out of their comfort zone and into kind of uncharted territory where they have to see if they can navigate it. They might fail, and that's okay because that's part of the process. That's just part of the process, and I just really get frustrated sometimes with the kind of old school application of learning modalities and learning methods where it's like if you want to learn English, just memorize the dictionary or something. It's like that's not how the dictionary is not how language works. That's not going to help a student memorizing some sentences or copying what the teacher says. It needs to be creative, it needs to be interpersonal, it needs to be interpretational, and it needs to be presentational. All of those things. So students need to be internalizing it, talking with other students in the classroom, and then presenting ultimately in the target language. And if you can conquer those three things, you really are on your way to being a successful English speaker or whatever language you're learning.
True. Now it is the need of the hour. But the irony of the situation is that still in majority of the institutions here in India, might be the similar situation in other countries also. We all understand there are two basic approaches. One is theoretical, another is practical. Still, in the schools or in the colleges, the emphasis is being laid on the theoretical part. I think we must now change the approach and emphasis should be laid on the practical part. Like
Yes.
language learning is a skill. Speaking, you would learn only with speaking. More you try to speak, more you will become proficient. Exactly the way you said. Suppose if I want to learn driving, so though I have been through hundreds of the books related to learning, or I want to learn swimming and I have gone through the books. I won't learn that whether before, if I won't be there in the driving seat or I dive into the ocean. So
Yeah.
it goes the similar way. Now the what we call to the techniques. What is the term for technique? Teaching techniques, pedagogy, pedagogy.
Well,
We,
I call it the communicative approach.
yeah.
Communicative
So
approach or social interactionist approach. That's another expression that we use in ESL. And the social interactionists, those were the educational psychologists that said, no, the best way to learn a grammar is to understand it internally. So, for example,
hmm,
if you were to ask me like a really difficult grammar question, I might not know the answer. I know the sentence is wrong because it feels wrong. Just like in your native language, you could say like that's wrong, but I don't know why exactly it's wrong. Like you couldn't explain it. And I think that is a type of grammar learning that we overlook and don't give any sort of validity or credit to. It's like we want to teach students all the rules, but it's like unless they internalize it and they can know that like, oh, that sentence is awkward, but this sentence sounds good. That's an
hmm,
internal grammar, and that's what most people use, and that's what most people need. If you went to America, and this is a funny experiment, I think it's true, I don't know, and you asked 10 people, circle the verb in this sentence, I think 5 people wouldn't know what you're talking about. Like they wouldn't find the verb in the sentence, because we just don't think about grammar in those terms. We just have an intuitive grammar that we follow based on the rules of the language as the society writ large, deems it proper. And there are times if you're a writer or for a professional writer, yeah, you need to understand, grammar. And if you're a teacher like me, I need to understand grammar. But most people don't need that much grammar. They just need a lot of speaking opportunities so that they can understand those patterns and replicate those patterns. And
hmm,
it's all about pattern recognition. That's language learning. It's being able to take this verb and then put a different verb in here, you know? I go to the store. I like the store. I hate the store. You're just putting different verbs in there, and you're able to
Mm.
create your own sentences and be creative with the language. And when you see students make that connection, it's a beautiful thing. It really is awesome because they feel so much relief. They're like, "Oh, I don't need to learn all these rules. I just need to follow my instinct, my gut." And once you have that kind of instinct, you're able to communicate and you're able to grow as a language, as a speaker, really quickly. But it does take some practice and some time to understand the rules of the language. And sometimes our native language will interfere with our second language. We know the rules in our language, but then when we start speaking another language, we use the same rules from, let's say, Hindi and apply it to English, it doesn't work. Or Korean to English, it doesn't work because it has a different sentence structure, a different syntax. And so I think some grammar instruction is okay in the very beginning, in the early stages. You can teach students in English, we have a subject, a verb, and an object, and that's how we make sentences, SVO. That's useful, but this whole deep grammar
Is
structure
not needed.
teaching, it's useless except for taking tests. If you want to be
Actually,
good at taking tests. Yeah.
I feel the English which is being taught in the classrooms, it is altogether different from the English we need in our daily life. And everybody's, because we people go to the schools or the colleges just to attain degrees, and
Hmm.
in after attaining those degrees, we everybody is in the race to get a good job. So our target is up to that only.
Right.
So I think the method to evaluate a person, it needs to be changed now.
Yeah.
It needs to be changed because the English, which is when it is being taught in the schools or in the colleges, the emphasis is laid on the grammar part, and students who are whose the English is not their first language. They might be talking in Punjabi or in Hindi or Assamese or any other, because there are thousands of languages and dialects in India itself, if you
Right.
talk about,
Yeah.
right? So I feel that fear of, because for, I think if not 100%, more than 90% of the students, they are always scared of this language, and especially the students who go to the government schools.
Yeah.
Now with the globalization, and with the globalization as an outcome of that, so many uh, modern kind of schools are replacing those the traditional schools, but their fee structure is so high that it's not pocket friendly for majority of the people.
Yeah.
And there is lots of now difference in the standard of education. The students who go to the private schools or in the branded schools, who can afford a good amount of fee they afford from their pocket,
Right.
in those schools now they have incorporated a subject, communication skills,
Right.
because English as a subject is altogether different from communication skills. But the important thing which is needed at this very moment is to work more on communication skills than simply on the, rather on the English language.
Yeah.
And because we have passed through, the persons like me, we have passed through that traditional kind of, schooling and college. So we have been taught in that very structural manner. And I have also been scared like any other second student from English
Right.
subject. Though I have been to the university as well. Again, the vocabulary was just confined to my subject only. And
Mhm.
because we were not talking to each other on daily basis, like journal kind of or day-to-day conversation, so I has always been hesitant. So the moral of the story is that we should understand, the policymakers must understand, because on one end we talk about modernization, globalization, we talk about being digital natives and technology and so many blah 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 we talk about.
Yeah.
So it means now we must prepare our students, or we must bring that kind of change in our education system which can make a person fit to fit in that environment.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. And I think the biggest challenge here in Korea, and I think India, I think there's a lot of parallels between India and Korea because of because you value education so highly in India, and also the competitive nature of it, because only a fraction of the students are able to, move on to the next level and to get those degrees and then get the jobs as medical doctors, lawyers, what have you. And the first challenge is the test assessment. The way that they assess students is like spelling, grammar, vocabulary. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
those are, because it's easy to assess that. It's easy to make a test like that. It's much more difficult to ask a teacher to do a speaking test and to use a rubric and grade that student. And oftentimes the teacher teaching doesn't have the linguistic skills needed to do that kind of
yes,
assessment. So you get a lot of pushback from especially the older teachers that have kind of been around for a long time. And they're like, we never did this in the 80s and the 90s, and they don't want to change, So you get
they don't want
stuck
to
with
change.
like, you get this resistance, this pushback where you know what the right thing to do is, but it's very hard to implement it and to satisfy, let's say I don't want to say the egos, but the maybe like lessen the fears of some of the teachers. Because if you talk to one of those teachers that have been around for 20 or 30 years and you say, now you're going to teach speaking, their heads will explode. They're like, I can't do it. I can't.
They actually, Mr. Jack, they don't want to come out of their comfort zone
Right.
because
That's
they want to get the maximum by putting in the minimum. This is
okay.
the main problem with, I think it is all related with the mindset with the majority of the people. If they have been in some system for 20 or 30 years, now they realize that very less productive period is left with them. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here because I don't belong to that kind of category, because
You were always progressive in your sorry, you froze up there for a second.
problem might be with
Your
my
video
internet.
froze. Sorry, please continue. You're okay now.
So I was just talking about that the people who have been in some system in for 20 or 30 years, they are not ready to change themselves, majority of them. Though this rule doesn't apply in on everybody, because in my case, I believe that we all have got just one life. And in that one life, I want to give every chance to myself, because I'm a kind of person who believe in growing. Whatever we learn on daily basis, may it be related to your education, maybe some fun game, maybe you have learned some driving something kind of thing, it is a sign of growth.
Yeah.
But there are very few people who are ready to come out of their comfort zones, because
Yes.
majority of the people, they want to stay there, and they are not ready to put in lots of efforts.
True.
Though they realize what is the need of the hour, what is needed, they don't deny it, but at the same time they don't want to participate their role, they don't want to come forward to be the change.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think in Korea, there's also an added element of the teacher is the philosopher king, they know all. And so to ask a teacher to move into a very insecure area where they're also learning at the same time they're teaching, puts them in very, like, culturally, it's very uh
Awkward situation, you mean?
precarious. Yeah, it's like they're they don't they just they're very much, it's again, it comes back to fear. We talked about fear, and it's like the fear of the unknown. And I don't want to take the risk. There's too much risk, and I think but young people, young teachers coming up now, they have a totally different attitude about these things. And I think the old system is kind of self-replicating in some
Hmm.
ways, but it's also it's starting to die away. And this
Hmm.
new more communicative approach to language learning, because it's just so much more effective. It creates real second language speakers, real English speakers, not just students who can pass a test or read a text and understand it, but people that can actually communicate. And the reason I know
Actually,
that is because of
the
all these
reason,
YouTube
and
channels, you know?
yeah, exposure is the main reason,
Mm,
because just a decade back, people were not aware of what is this YouTube. So there was
right,
no such exposure. Okay. And hardly a few people could be getting the chance to fly overseas. So they used to remain in that kind of environment where they were born.
right.
But because of globalization, because of social media, now the young generation, they are ready to do anything, to take all the risks, because for them their ideals are the people who are sitting overseas. Their
Yeah,
role models are not the people around them. So
right.
their perspective is altogether changed. Like sitting here in India, if I talk about my young children who are growing up, they won't listen to Hindi or Punjabi songs, they would listen to all English songs. So the
Mm,
children who grow up listening English songs and being around English all the time, and their medium of instruction, suppose, has been English or throughout their study student life. So
yeah.
definitely their perspective would be altogether different from their parents or or the older generation.
They have a totally different relationship with the language than the older
Yes,
generation. And
yes,
that different relationship is one that reduces the fear, because you're not afraid of it anymore. It's something that you've actually
yes.
interacted with, and you have listened to it, and you actually maybe are even hungry to learn more about it. It's created it kind of piqued your interest in that. And that's a beautiful thing about, sometimes we talk a lot about the negatives of social media, and there are plenty of negative things, but that's I think one of the benefits
Positive
of
aspects.
yeah, it's really positive. Yeah.
Mhm.
This is a very interesting conversation. I didn't expect to go this deep into the philosophy of education, but I appreciate it. As you as an administrator, and also someone who has a lot of teaching experience, you've really enlightened me and given me different perspectives. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. Actually, I understand time is running and video is getting longer. I have so much in my mind to ask you because I haven't asked you anything. But I think you would also agree with it that we must wrap this session over here and hope to have some other conversation in future as well, because I have so much in my mind, because I haven't asked anything that I want to know that, because you are an English tutor, and I want to know what is your methodology, how do, because you might be teaching to the students, not the from your own country, might be
Hmm.
people from all different nations
Yeah.
whose the first language is not English. Then what kind of strategies you adapt, and everything related to it. But I
Let's
think now
I'll
it's
I'll make a
getting longer.
promise right here. Let's do it again. I'll come on, and we'll talk about I can talk about my methodology, and you can share yours, and we can get into that in another discussion. But I would be happy to come back on your channel anytime.
Thank you, thank
All right.
you, thank
Thank
you.
thank you so much. Okay. Have a good evening. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.